it does
something for the
wonders for us.
So, Fred, are we all good? Okay, all right, sweet.
All right, I'm not gonna lie, I'm so excited to be sitting with both of you. And then, okay, so this is my boss, and this is like the first time I'm meeting him today. So it's amazing.
It's pretty wild, yeah.
I know, like it's been phone calls, and then you walked in. I'm like, this is so cool. So I kind of wanted to start with Bob. You started your, I'm sorry, you have been doing US Submarine Force for 20 years.
I was in the Navy for
Yeah.
22 years. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to be
Submarines.
extra proper. But yeah, tell me a little bit about your experience on, doing that, and then the transition into starting your own company.
Yeah, so, the mic. Yeah, so I grew up here in Illinois, downstate, and out in the middle of nowhere, and went to Illinois in Champaign, engineering, and that was boring. So I said, I got to do something exciting. The Navy came along. US Navy offered me a position on a submarine, and I went out and did that, and that was cool. It was an adventure, but I kind of had business in my mind, so I came to Northwestern and got my MBA, but I was still in the Navy, and the Navy wanted me back. So just to make it short, I served 22 years. I was commanding officer of a nuclear submarine, USS Key West, and I did it for two reasons. I wanted to serve my country. I guess three reasons. I wanted the pension at the end so I could be free, okay? That was really the driver. So in any case, that's how I kind of got started in life.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I'll just share, I never really wanted to be in kind of bureaucracy. One thing I wanted to ask, like people, like, does bureaucracy drive you crazy, like administrators? Try the Navy for 22 years, okay? In a submarine, in a tube, steel tube. But there was a purpose to it, so
Yeah.
I stuck it out. And then I left the Navy in 2011. And I went to corporate America, which was worse. I thought something was wrong with me, like I can't keep a job. My mom's 75. She's like, Bob, can you keep a job? I'm like, no, I don't want a job. I finally realized, this is something I wanted to share with people, is that you may feel like you're like different because you don't like corporate America, but you are different. You are an entrepreneur, or you want to be a business owner. And I thought for a long time that there was just something wrong with me because I could not stand working for somebody else. And that urge just finally drove me. In 2016, I quit my job, my day job, two girls in college at the time. My wife thought I was absolutely nuts, and I started my company by myself.
Yeah.
No clients, no revenue, nothing.
That's crazy. Now, did anyone, thank you, did anyone like tell you, Bob, don't do that? What are you doing?
Everybody.
Everyone?
Yeah, I mean, so it's like it's not the traditional life, right? I mean, here I am, a Kellogg MBA with a double E degree, making a good living in corporate America as a vice president of an engineering firm. I worked right down on 30 LaSalle. And there was nice people. We were doing great things, building power plants.
Yeah.
My kids are happy. We got everything we need. But I could not live with myself. I went to work and I hated myself. It wasn't because I didn't like the people, the work. It was because I needed to do something on my own, to build something on my own. I had no idea what I was going to do with that. But yeah, my mom, your mom is always like telling you, right?
Yeah.
Stick with the job. But no, I couldn't do it. So
my life.
you got to fight against that. Yeah.
No, seriously. That's why I don't tell her anything at all. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to school. Yeah, no, I'm working corporate. Yep, 9 to 5. Yep. It's not true. I have to, so then I can just push forward. But thank you. Michael, how'd you get started in Entre?
Yeah, so I want to add to that too real quick because I do that as well. It's sometimes better if you don't tell your family and friends what you're doing all the time because they won't understand you. It's one of the reasons why I had a similar background to Bob. I was a civil engineer. And then I just was so interested in other things. And when I got into like my job, my creativity died. And when my creativity died, there was something inside of me that also died. And I was like, I felt like I wasn't living up to my potential in a lot of ways as well, which is a really strange feeling to have. And it led me to kind of, wanting to do my own thing, like you said. And I got into real estate, which led me to Miami. And I spent over a year starting a real estate company and a marketing company. with one of my mentors, and I learned a lot through that process. But there was always something inside of me too that it was really important for me to meet other entrepreneurs. When I left my job, I didn't know any entrepreneurs. No one in my family was an entrepreneur. None of my friends were. So I couldn't have those conversations that I wanted to have with my family and friends for the most part. So I kind of was like, why isn't there something for entrepreneurs? Because I was just literally messaging people on Instagram and Facebook like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. Do you want to talk? Like, it was weird.
They're
But
like, wow.
but everyone, it was weird though, because everyone was like, yeah, okay, let's talk. And it was like this thing that clicked, and I was like, wow, entrepreneurs are like really eager to meet each other, and there's not a unanimous place to go for entrepreneurs. If you ask people on the street or people who are interested, but they don't know where to start, if you ask people where are you going to go to start a business, they'd be like, I don't know, like Google or YouTube, or talk to a lawyer and write a business plan. It's not taught. It's not, a thing. And we want, as Entre, we want that to be an instant answer. Like, oh, just go to Entre. They have the community resources, events, anything you need. You can meet whoever you need and get started really, really quickly. So that's kind of like, it was more of a selfish thing. Like, yeah, I mean, it was literally, you evolve so fast as an entrepreneur too. So it's kind of wild. And I want to kind of ask Bob a question too to follow this up. Cause I know,
Sorry,
it's
like,
cool. So like, you were in the Navy, right? And then you got out, and you were telling me earlier too about like kind of one thing that clicked with like people asking you to speak, and that kind of like started it. So I'd love for you to share what you were telling me earlier about that whole process.
Yeah, I will. So I was, in my day job trying to think of what I could do to start a business. And I didn't want to, you might guess I'm a little advanced in age compared to some of you. So I wasn't at the point where I could like pour a lot of capital, or didn't have the long view. Had to be a little bit more risk averse. So I was looking for kind of a low capital investment type situation. So, but I didn't have anything, and nothing would come to me. And I knew I needed to start a company. I just didn't know what. One time got a phone call, a buddy that runs a consulting firm said, come to Houston and give a speech for us. Tell us how you operate a nuclear submarine with 18-year-old high school graduates and you didn't blow it up. I'm like, oh, I can tell that story, sure. So I flew down to Houston, some oil executives sitting in the room. I tell a story. I think nothing of it. I'm going to get back on the plane, come back to Chicago, get back to work. And an executive from BP comes up to me and says, I got to have you come speak at BP. How much is your fee? I'm like, you'll pay me to talk? And they did. And I just kept getting more speaking events without really any effort. That was the beautiful. I was just like, wow. And then finally I said, well, I need to write this down. So we wrote a book. And, follow the typical consulting, you got to write a book. You got to communicate a story. We wrote a book in 4 months and self-published it, $1,200. I mean, like I said, I wasn't going to spend a year chasing down Random House. We audio taped a conversation every Sunday for 3 months, my co-author and I. We had it transcribed, and then we edited it, and we had published a book in 4 months. And, just get it out there. And it's scary. Let me tell you, when you actually start marketing it, and like your mom's going to read it again, everything. And she did send me a copy with all the wrong, all the mistakes in it. She's a teacher. But anyway, so that's kind of how I got my start. And if I went back and like said, okay, I want to be a business startup guy, and I'm going to write this 30-page business plan, I'm going to have pro formas out for 5 years, yada, 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 everything they teach you, right, in business school or wherever else. No, I did nothing of that. I quit my day job, published the book, and started talking to people. And my real only business plan was I was going to talk to anybody who would talk to me for the first 9 months to a year, and if they had a problem, I was listening. That's all I did. And if anybody would have me speak, I'd speak for free, large, small group, whatever. If they invited me to their office, I would go sit. I didn't care what industry. I didn't care anything. Mm-hmm. I was basically giving up a year to do research, my service product research. And at the end of that, I had a business, and we started revenue, and the business model is important. That's one thing I wanted to touch on just a little bit. And the spaces, I am virtual office, I have no employees except my wife, who's my bookkeeper. All right. I have 12 people on 1099s. I outsource everything through Upwork. I mean, this is a wonderful time to be an entrepreneur. You can have a business overnight, outsourcing everything, low risk, low overhead. You can work out of virtual offices, which I have all over the country. I mean, it's awesome. And that's the model. You have to think about your model, right? No one's coming to my consulting office in St. Charles, Illinois. I don't need an office out there. I need a space in Chicago because this is maybe where some clients are, or Houston and Calgary and other places I go to. So today's a wonderful time. You've got all the tools, but you got to step it out there. That's the hardest part, stepping it out there.
Yeah, you mentioned that being an entrepreneur, like it's so easy right now, but a lot of us are really scared. So how do you find that motivation to push through? Because yeah, obviously there's going to be a lot of people who are going to reject the idea. So how do you just keep going day to day and being like, no, I want this?
All right, everybody's got a different place in life and everything else, but I basically, I put 50 grand in the bank. I was in the position I could do that, and I said, I'm gonna live off this on my budget until it runs out, and I'll get a job. And that's what I told my wife. I have a very supportive wife. She thinks I'm crazy, but she supports me. I said, when the money runs out, I'll get another job. I can always get another job. And that's what I'll tell every one of you. You can always get a job, right? And maybe you have to work part-time or whatever. Figure out your cash flow thing. But you really got to step out there. Don't put one toe in the water and keep on, you know, at your age especially, some of you are young enough, get it out there. Just do it. Be ready to fail. It's okay. All right? It is okay to fail. I didn't predict everything. We went from zero revenue, no clients, nothing. And we're doing over 3 million now, 12 guys working all over North America. I couldn't predict that. I didn't write that business script, but I followed every opportunity. I was ready to fail. I have failed. So you really just, there's nothing else I can say, but when you're so sick of going to your job, quit and figure out how to live off ramen noodles or whatever and do it. And just have a deadline where you don't impact other people. So like I said, I had 2 girls in college, a son in high school, a mortgage, no other debt, so I don't believe in debt. But you're all in a different position. Figure out what that is. Figure out what your timeline is. And then have a backup plan, but just throw it out there. That's all I can really say, because there will never be the perfect time to start a company. Never. You'll be waiting and waiting and waiting for the right time in the economy, waiting for the right time in your life, in your kid's life, whatever. Don't wait. Get it out there. Start meeting people. And I think it's Zig Ziglar wrote this, famous, you know, my mantra for the first year was, you know, I'm going to butcher it up, but if you find enough people to help succeed in what they want in life, you will find what you want in life. That is the truth. Just find people to help, okay? Whether it's with your product or with your service, it turns into success, and you can't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid of the success.
Yeah, no, I'm literally doing the same thing. So I'm lifting everywhere. You're going to see like my pretty face everywhere, just picking up people, because I need that side money. I need hustle. And I can't be afraid of failure. Like, I'm addicted to it. I think I was telling a couple people in here, like, I have to seek for it, whether I'm nervous or meeting people, or how do I talk to a new group in like a networking event. I just barge in. I'm like, hello, hi, I'm JoJo. What's up? And it's super awkward, but it works every time. People are like, oh yeah, she was super awkward, but really nice. What was her name? Oh yeah, JoJo. So yeah, I seek for that. And I tell this to everyone, please go out, fail, be awkward. Life's kind of short, so like, why not? You know. Can you tell me kind of something similar?
I'll speak to that for sure. No, it's really failure. If you listen to anyone who has created massive success, failure is a huge part of it. Because in my opinion, like, all failure is just experimenting. So you have to experiment things. You have to just try things. If it works, keep doing it. If it doesn't work, iterate. And it's actually kind of crazy, because recently I went through a lot of math classes in engineering, and a lot of like later on math classes are focused on like iterations. And I was like, wow, that's actually really similar to how entrepreneurship is, and just like problem solving in general, which I think entrepreneurship is as well. It's like just finding a problem in your life or someone else's life. Most of the time, the best problems are stuff that really pisses you off. So like finding something that gets you really mad because you're going to be so determined to build it to not have that problem happen anymore. But it was funny because I think iteration's so critical to math. It's like in all the math problems, but it's also the secret, like to entrepreneurship and success in anything. I mean, if you want health, like you have to like try different foods to see what works for you, or like what workouts you like to do. Cause you shouldn't be running 5 miles a day if you don't like running, right? Like go biking or play basketball or something, right? So you have to figure out what works for you. And that's the biggest thing. It's making sure you understand yourself, and then like how can you build something that can help you be yourself every day? If you can just be yourself every day and find a way to make that, like turn that into something, because you love what you're doing now and helping people, right? And you have a background and you've been doing it for so long, so it comes effortlessly. There's no friction. But yeah, failure is huge. I mean, like to summarize the last, like besides like this past year, the 4 years previous, complete failures. Mm-hmm. Like my whole first like 3 years as a entrepreneur, total failure, at one failure after another failure after another failure. Mm-hmm. And now finally things are starting to click and things are starting to move. So it's pretty wild, and like you just have to be consistent and go through it. If you want what you're trying to get like enough and desire, it's going to happen. It might not happen overnight, but it's going to happen eventually.
So, touching on that, can you tell me a story of just like the worst moment, the worst failure, and how you came through it? How did that push you? Or who knows, maybe it just destroyed you for a good month, and then you rebuild. So this is for both you guys.
I'm thinking. Do you have one more?
Prep me for that question.
Oops. You know what? I could tell you mine. It's really short.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I used to do funding, I'm friends with this guy named Mark Vargas. He does like interviews, kind of like me, with Mark Cuban. He worked at the Pentagon. Cool guy, right? I was like, hey, I need an interview with this guy in downtown Chicago, vice president of so-and-so, I don't even know. So I go in, we're in a meeting, and, he sits down. He kind of sees right through me. All I wanted to do was be like, hey, I can raise capital for your people, or anyone who works here. Like, that's what I do. He saw right through me. He sat down with an assistant, and assistant was so excited to be like, oh, I wonder what this is going to be about. So I told him, like, what I do. Ooh, and he did not care. Like, there was so much silence, and I'm, like, waiting for it. I'm like, so what do you think? What do you think? He's like, who got you this meeting? Like, who are you? I was like, no, it flew right over my head. I'm like, no worries. If you know Mark Vargas, blah, 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 blah. I got in contact with him, yada, yada, yada. He's like, huh, interesting. And, like, it was super awkward, but it sucked. Something that I'm working at a company, and you crushed it in 5 seconds. So I was all like, and, like, the guy, his assistant, was like, oh, like, packing up his notebook. He's like, okay, this is going to be a really quick meeting. And they offered me, like, okay, this is what we can kind of do. We'll email you. Yeah, but thanks for stopping by. And then he's like, I hope this is not the only thing you're doing today. And I was all like, you son of a, no worries. I'm busy. I got meetings all day. No worries. It was just him. It was just him. So, yeah, it sucked, but I loved it. It was suffering, but I loved it. It was weird. It was like a weird, like, high for me. I was like, wow, that really hurt, but I kind of want to never have that happen. But if it does, I'm going to be really prepared next time and show this guy up. So, yeah, that was mine. That was a recent one, too.
Somewhat similar. So in the early stages, I was desperate for clients, of course. You can't show that because it doesn't sell well. But I got called down to Memphis, Tennessee, to a very large company that delivers packages to your home. And they were having some safety issues. And they brought me in. They showed me their whole operation, walked me through they move 1 million packages a day. It's pretty fascinating. Everything was great. The operations folks, and we were hitting it off. And I thought, this is in the bag, right? And they asked me for a proposal. They hadn't earlier. They said, can you bring a proposal to the meeting with the vice president? and said, oh, yeah, absolutely. And this was a 2-day event. So the first night, I'm just like loving. I'm typing out the proposal and counting the dollars in my bank account, which had very few zeros at that point. And I'm telling the guys on Slack or whatever I'm on that, oh, we're going to nail this. And I go into the meeting the next day, and we have just a few rules in my company. Number one rule is no assholes. So and I don't know if I can say, and that includes clients. And I walked into this meeting, and this VP started just berating us, me, my company. I didn't even know this person. And I said, that's it. You just violated rule number 1. I picked up my proposal. They said, what are you doing? I'm like, I can't work for you. You violated rule number 1. We're not going to work with you. And I'm telling you, in the back of my mind, I think, I'm going bankrupt. I'm going to have to sell the car and the kids. I went back to, can't get much for that. Not good. I get back to the hotel. I get on Slack. I like, guys, went south. A month later, and for a month, I beat myself up. Like, Bob, can't you just be a normal guy, be nice, shut up, take the cash? The next month, we're all still not very much project work. We're all still desperate. I get a phone call out of the blue. It's the CEO of a $20 billion company in Canada. Are you available to be in Calgary tomorrow? You bet I am. He was a great guy. Next thing I know, we have a 7-figure contract. We would not have been available to do that had I not walked away from that other company. I did not know that at the time. But stick to your principles, have some rules. You don't have to have our rules, but that's the other freedom of working for yourself. You pick who you get to work with. And I want to work with fun people, not jerks. So that's my story.